workout against Bill Bradley, and Bush was in this protracted and bitter battle against John McCain, and that is exactly the kind of thing Gore would have liked, but lo and behold, when the public had a chance to step back, what appears to have happened is that the Bush-McCain matchup was a fair fight. They were both tough guys. And when George W. Bush emerged from the campaign, tough as it was and brutal as it was, people said, aha, he's survived, he did a good job. Bradley, for all his athletic prowess, turned out to be a terrible candidate. He didn't deal well with the press, he didn't deal well with people, he didn't deal well with the early Gore attacks. And so when Gore defeated him as easily as he did, it looked like the schoolyard bully picking on the 97-pound weakling. And contrary to initial impressions, people made bad judgments about Gore because of it. And the interesting thing at this point in time is that Gore is winning on the critical issues, the issues he has to win on in order to prevail. The environment, the economy, health insurance, education. Those are Gore pluses with most of the population groups that have been sampled, but it's the character issues. It's leadership, integrity, which man is a better example for the public that the polls show George W. Bush is prevailing on, and that is translating into big votes.
Well, let's look a little bit at this point in time, because we still haven't had the conventions. It's way before Labor Day. Isn't it true that a lot of Americans really haven't made up their mind yet who they are going to vote for, or may still change their minds?
I think you're correct in both accounts. The conventions will be important. It'll be the first national look at George W. Bush organizing something. And it's also going to be an in-depth look at Al Gore when he's not completely in the shadow of Bill Clinton. So I think the conventions will be important. More important yet will be the debates, because the outstanding question about George W. Bush is he substantive enough to be president of the United States? We know that Gore is. We have other problems with Gore, but we know that he is an intelligent man who's a policy wonk, knows the issues. We don't know that about George W. Bush, and if he gets into a debate with Gore and is seen to be lacking in knowledge and lacking in vitality and intellectual breadth, then I think he could be in real trouble.
In a way, you're saying that Gore isn't just fighting George W. Bush, he's fighting public perceptions or misperceptions about himself. Let's project a little bit and see some of the potential stumbling blocks Gore faces. The Clinton factor.
I think the Clinton factor cuts both ways, because Bill Clinton has bequeathed to Gore a very robust economy, an economy that is so good that no incumbent administration with it has ever been voted out of office. On the other side, there is the sleaze factor. There is the inability of Gore to articulate in very good terms whether he's the supporter or the critic. The Clinton factor is important, and it will become even more important if Gore himself gets in trouble again with the campaign fundraising issue. If Janet Reno appoints an independent counsel, I think that could doom the Gore candidacy. I think if it happens early enough, it could even trigger voices in the Democratic Party urging Gore not to accept the nomination. That's how serious a blow it would be.
And what would happen then?
I'm not predicting it. I'm saying that Janet Reno is more likely not to appoint an independent counsel than to appoint. But if she did appoint one, and if the charges looked serious, then I think rather than going to a loser like Bradley, the Democrats would turn to somebody who is very formidable but elected not to campaign against Gore. And I think the person that calls to mind is Gephardt.
Assuming this campaign does not go into tilt mode, you've been watching this man for months, years. Can you hazard a guess as to who he might choose as a running mate?
I can hazard a guess as to who I would choose as a running mate if I were Al Gore, and I could pick between two people. Number one is Senator Joseph Lieberman of Connecticut. Very smart.
Very outspoken during the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Outspoken, a moral voice, a beacon in the Senate, honored and respected by both Democrats and Republicans, a man who would add real class to the ticket. And the other appealing nominee would be Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts. For more traditional reasons. He's very smart, he's very tough, and he would pummel George W. He would be the typical vice presidential candidate in the sense of he's the attack dog. But I think John Kerry, with his war background in Vietnam and Bush's rather thin credentials as a National Guard pilot in Texas, I think Kerry would be a two-fisted complement to Gore and allow Gore to take more of the high road. I don't think Lieberman could play that role as effectively.
Both white males.
Well, why should we discriminate against somebody just because he's male and white?
Bob Zelnick is U.S. Vice President Al Gore's biographer. And here's a final look at today's main news on World Update.